Welcome to How to Become a Production SQL Database Administrator. My name is Raphael. In the next several videos now, we're going to be talking about what is an extended event. Well, let's discuss it here academically, then I'll give you a demonstration. An extended event is an SQL tool that allows the DBA to monitor what's going on in a SQL Server instance. Now, you may ask the question, isn't that what SQL Profiler does and SST does, which I demonstrated in the previous videos? And that is true. Extended events is going to be replacing the SQL Profiler and SST in the upcoming SQL versions. Extended events have been in the SQL version since 2008. However, since it did not have a GUI-based interface, many DBAs did not utilize this tool, but rather relied on the SQL Profiler. But as you'll note now, and as I'll demonstrate, Extended Event is a very powerful tool with a graphical user interface in the front end. So I'll be demonstrating that to you. So let's continue with that. So an Extended Event is a SQL tool, as I said, that allows the DBA to monitor what's going on. It monitors very much like its predecessor, the SQL Profiler. But again, as I said, it has a granular way of capturing events in the SQL environment. But unlike the SQL Profiler Trace, one of the great benefits are the following. It has little performance impact. Let me stress that again. One of the great benefits of the extended event as opposed to the SQL Profiler is this, that it does not have a tremendous impact on the SQL Server itself, so you can actually run this on the server itself. And as you'll notice here that Microsoft has done a tremendous amount of research and find that it's only like 2% utilization of CPU. The DBA does not have to write code to extract the data as they used to the previous versions. And there is, as I said, there's a front-end graphical user interface, and I'll demonstrate that to you in a second. So as I mentioned, that the event was introduced in 2008, but because it had no GUI interface, DBAs were forced to write complex codes to gather data, and then it didn't go beyond that. In 2012, it was introduced with the GUI interface, and obviously the version that I'm using, 2014, it's made a lot life easier for us, and you'll see that in a second. So what are some of the benefits of using extended events? Well, just as like the SQL Profiler, the extended events is built into the SSMS Studio, so we can work directly in that very similar environment. They can be created without any SQL commands or XML data. And this is a great way of doing this also. This is the most important things that you should, again, hardly any overhead when using them on the SQL Server. So that's an important consideration. As I mentioned, it was less than 2% of CPU response when we run the thing. Now, obviously, this percentage may vary depending on the resources, but generally speaking, there's not that much tremendous resources consumed. It's going to be replacing SQL Profiler and then SSTS because these are going to be deprecated in the upcoming versions. Easy to use and powerful, and it's not only it's wizard driven. I'll show you that in a second. So again, what was the reason why you would use that? Well, again, just like the SQL Profiler, we can find long-running queries, we can track DDML operations, find missing statistics, resolve blocking and deadlocking. That's an important concept for performance. Queries that cause specific wait stats to occur, so we can discover those, and monitor SQL memory stress and CPU stress. So again, very similar to SQL Profiler. So if I've demonstrated how to use the SQL Profile and its performances, this is just an added benefit with more power. So that's a good thing. So some of the terminology you may see me using or read about is the package, the event, actions, targets, predicates, and sessions. And I encourage you just to quickly go through this, and obviously this document will be for you. But everything primarily is in what's called a package. When you create an event, it creates what's called a session. Let me discuss what a session is. A session is a way of grouping events and their associated action and predicates. So that's what a session is. A predicates are filters. Targets are, for example, buffers to disks. Actions are what happens to the event, which you respond to. And events are categories of data driven for analysis. And a package is the entire container that contains these events. And it'll become a little more easier when we actually look at the SQL. So now that we've understood what an extended event is, the benefits of it, some of the terminology. I'm going to now demonstrate to you the extended event using the wizard first for finding who, what, where, when altered the size of a database. So let's jump on to the SQL server, and here it is. As you'll notice on the left-hand side, I've got my databases here. If I refresh them, you'll see that I do not have a database called SQL size. So what I want to do now is use the extended event to monitor any alteration in the size of the database. So I can become that granular, and I can find who did it, when they did it, what size was the original and what was increased, and so on. So we can become very granular in discovering that. So let's do that. So before I do that, actually, let's create this database. So I want you to highlight this entire script of creating an SQL size. Now, note one thing, the original size is 4 megabytes, which is the default on 2014, and 1 megabyte for the log file. So as soon as I execute this, it'll be finished, and if I refresh, you'll see that I have a database called SQL size, and if I right-click Properties and go to Files, you'll notice that the initial size is 4 and 1. So take a note of the size there. So what we're going to be doing now is we're going to alter that size, and we want to use the extended event and try to discover who and what changed that. So let's kill that right for now. So how do you create a session in the extended event? The way you do that is go to, let me just minimize this, go to Management, and here you'll see the extended events. If you expand that and then expand the sessions, this is what you do. You first create a session, and then within the session, you create what are called packages. And if you look at this session, and if you look at this section, now obviously these two sessions are already created by default. And obviously the red sign here indicates that it's not activated, whereas the green sign, it says it's activated. And these are the packages and the files that are gathering these system health and always on packages and events. But again, we're not worried about that. We're going to create our second. So remember, so you can't do anything here. It's actually creating a session where you begin. So go to Extended Events. On the new, we're going to create a new session. So right-click New Session. There are two options: New Session Wizard or New Session with the. This is more of a. This is obviously the wizard directing it. This is where you direct it. And let's start with the wizard so you have a better understanding. And then I'll have a video dedicated to this where you can create your own templates, if you will. So let's start with the wizard. So when you create that, this is the first introduction that comes up. And obviously now just quickly, let's read it because we have not discovered this. And this is some tool that you will be using just like you did in your SQL Profiler to find about performance issues. So the wizard helps you create extended event sessions by selecting events that you want to capture in your SQL Server. So just like we captured events and columns in SQL Profiler, we're going to go through this process, but a little more granular, a little more power. So you can use extended events to monitor your server, which helps accomplish the following tasks: application tuning, troubleshooting performance like we have, and transact SQL query analysis. So basically performance issues. So go next. Obviously you want to give it a name, so we'll just call it, let's just call it database size. And obviously you can schedule it to start the session at the start of the server or manually do it. So we're going to skip this right now for our demonstration purposes. So that's the session number. Go session name. So that's easy. Go next. Now obviously here you have the options to help you monitor a server. SQL provides a list of pre-configured events, session templates that you can select, or you can create your own. So obviously if you check this radio button here and go down, then you can obviously select these. Now, I may have a video dedicated to this later, but for our purposes, we're going to create our own and use do not use template. So go here, click this and go next. Now here is obviously, let's look at this. You have the options of giving all the data for event names and descriptions, all. So let's go all. The other thing you'll notice here is let me just expand this. This is the event library here. And what that means, obviously, is that it allows us to search the entire library of events. These are events, these are categories, and these are channels. And if I go to the category, you can see all have been selected, and there's a lot of categories for these events. If you look at the channel, you'll see that you can narrow it down to administrative events, analytical events, debugging events, or operational events. And we're just going to leave it as default here. But basically, we'll be most likely doing is administrative events since we're doing production DBA stuff. So what we want to look for now, obviously, is database. So if you type in database, it allows you to select the events because this is just a filter. So events, and what is the event that we want to select? So we want to select actually, now obviously everything is highlighted. So what do we want to do with the databases? Well, as I said, the demonstration that I'm going to be utilizing is this one. And as you can see, the category is database. The channel or the properties of that is operational. So what I want to determine is I've created a database and I want to discover or I want to record if anything changes the size of the database. So this is what I want to select. And this is the event. And obviously now here, if you'll notice, as I click on it, you've got the event fields here, if I scroll down, and then the descriptions. Now, these can be regarded in the SQL profile analogous to the columns. This is the event. These are the columns, if you will. So this is what I want to discover. And I'm going to go right-click here, and there it is. So I'm going to go next. Now, within that event, I could select a tremendous amount of what I call fields here, or global fields, or actions. So what do I want to happen against that event I just selected? What do I want to capture? Well, I've said that anytime that the database changes, I want to know whatever I select here. So what do I want to know about that? Well, I want to know the database name that was changed. I want to know the NT user who changed it. A couple other things. I want to know what the SQL text was that was causing the change, the look of the username, and what else can we select? So this is the opportunity where you can select and be very granular as to what you want to capture. Maybe the client host that did it, and so on. And so you can do ID and so on. Let's do the ID. And that's it for our demonstration purposes. So if I go next here, here's where you can filter. So if you want to filter here, just like the filter did, we can select the fields that we want to filter. In this case, I don't want everything, so I want this database name. I only want to filter it on the database name. So it was called SQL size. That was this database that I want to run this event against. So again, this is a filtering operation, not very difficult. This is the predicate in parlance of extended events. Go next. Where do I want to save this file if I want it later for analysis? We can just leave it here. If you go to browse, you can see where you want it, but that's fine. C is fine. Obviously, it talks about the maximum size. Now, obviously, 1 gig is massive in size, so we're going to leave it as default. Leave it as enable, just in case you're recording some tremendous amount of memory, tremendous amount of data that goes over 1 gig, and that's 5. And obviously, I highly doubt you'll do 5 gigs. You shouldn't be doing anywhere near 5 gigs of data collection, but this is fine. So this is so that's the data storage for the file. So go next. And obviously now it comes to the summary. So let's just check our summary events and see what's going to happen when we execute it and so on. So we've got the session property, which is remember the session name. We called it a database size. We're not using the template. What are the events that we're capturing? We're capturing any time the database file changes. That's the event we're capturing. What is the specific fields related to that change that we need to capture? Well, they're the host name, the database ID, the database name, the person using it, what is the SQL actual script that was executed against it, and so on and so on. And this is the package name. So now we go, and the other thing is if you click on this, you can actually script it. If I minimize this, you can actually script it, and you can actually save the script so you don't have to constantly do that wizard if you wish. That's a great benefit also. So where are we now? So let's get back to this. And now I'm just going to go finish. And it's successful. So now we can close this. So let me just look at the time quickly. Now, if you notice here that obviously the session that we just created, the extended event specifically underneath the session was created. Since we did not start it automatically, it's got that red arrow. So what I want to do now is, and there's the package that package is created for the event file. Remember, the package contains the events, the columns, the data, and so on. So the first thing you want to do is right-click and start the session. So now that we've started the session, we can actually, now the package is started, it's actually recording that. So let's now make that change. So let's go to that database and just verify that size again. Go to Properties, go to Files, and you'll notice it's 4 and 1. So now I'm going to actually change it. While the extended view is running, I'm going to actually change it. And remember, I'm the one who's changing it. So use this command to change it. I'm changing it from 4 to 20 and 1 to 5. So this is the data log. This is the this is the MDF data log, data file. This is the log file. So I'm going to be actually modifying that and changing it. And if I go execute, it's fine. If I go over here, Properties, so let's visually confirm that it's been changed to 20. Now I may take a little toll here, but that's fine. And if I go File, you'll notice that it has changed from 4 to 20, from 1 to 5. So let's verify that that was captured. So now if we go here and we right-click, we can go Watch Live Data. And the other way you can do it, if you click on the event and view target data, and there it is, it's collected. So as soon as you click on the event here, database size, you'll notice that this pane at the bottom will populate, and it's got all those columns that we selected. So if you click on that one, you'll see that this is the data file, and the data file it's been increased to 20 things. This is the SQL script that modified it. This is the username who created it or modified it, and so on. And if we click on this, this will give us the log information regarding that. And obviously you can see that it's been changed also. And again, we modified it to 5. And again, the username. So whatever detail we wanted about that particular event, we can become far more complicated. But this is the granularity of extended events. And now we can save these files and start analyzing them also. So this is how you use a extended event. And as I said, it's a great tool to use. And SQL seems to improve every time better and better. So I think I'll leave it here right now. And so that gives you an example of how to use an extended event, how to create a session, how to start an event, how to view it. And the next video I'm going to do is actually I'm going to go through the extended session, and I'm going to actually create one myself without using the wizard. So now that you're familiar with that, it'll be a lot easier. So I'll just leave it here and we'll take it from the next video. So my name is Rafael, and this is how to become a production SQL database administrator.